One of the more ridiculous things that I've ever seen from in like covering politics over the last 20, 25 years is what this administration is doing right now. It's as if they're incredibly tone deaf to what's happening all around them. And they live in some sort of cloistered environment where I don't know who's feeding them this information, as if they're unaware of what's actually happening at gas stations, what's happening at pharmacies, what's happening at grocery stores, living in a fantasy world. So, I mean, all of your pain, though, good news, all of the pain that you've been feeling recently is all about to go away now because President Biden is going to implement, or pushing Congress to implement this temporary gas tax holiday for the summer. Take a listen to President Biden.
Gas stations to pass along the decree, not the decree, but the decrease in oil prices to lower prices at the pump. And together, these actions could help drop the price at the pump by up to $1 a gallon or more. It doesn't reduce all the pain, but it would be a big help. I'm doing my part. I want the Congress, the states, and the industry to do their part as well.
You're doing your part, right? Now, I want to just, if we can, I don't know if you're able to re-rack that or not, Philip, or maybe I have to do it here, but if you just look at what was over his shoulder here. So look at the imagery here, right? As he's talking about this gas tax, and he wants Congress to do that. As he's talking, the graphic that they have shows gas prices plummeting. Do you see that?
Yes, I do. I did notice that.
Smart marketing, right? Like as I'm talking, these gas prices are going down.
Subliminal.
The only problem is the opposite is happening. As he's talking, the gas prices are going up. So this is not accurate. Maybe a fantasy world where he lives. So Jean-Pierre, Karine Jean-Pierre, who's the White House press secretary, was asked about this, and she is being pressed. Now, up until this point, I mean, talking about recession, they're not talking about recession at the White House. They don't want that word being used at all. And despite all of the evidence right now, towards recession, the White House is still continuing to drag their feet on this and say that we don't see a recession coming. We don't see it. Nothing to see here. Take a listen.
There's no inevitability around a recession, but there is a greater deal of market concern about exactly that. And I know that inflation is your number one concern, but can you talk a little bit about if you're doing anything at all to prevent a recession or a rise in unemployment?
So the way that we see this, and you've heard us talk about this, that we're in a moment of transition. We have seen we are in a unique situation with the historical gains with our economy. The way that we see it is unemployment rate has held steady at 3.6, which is also near historic lows. Business investment remains strong. Household balance sheets remain strong. There was an analysis that came out recently that showed middle-class Americans had an additional $10,000 in savings then before the pandemic. Another analysis found that all income groups had higher checking account balances at the end of March than they had pre-pandemic. So we see that the strengths that our economic strength that we have seen from this past year, from the action that the president has taken with the American Rescue Plan, with what we have seen with the historical gains, that is going to help us deal with a recession. Right now, we don't see a recession. Right now, we're not in a recession right now. Right now, we're in a transition where we are going to go into a place of stable and steady growth, and that's going to be that's going to be our focus.
Oh, I thank you for answering my question clearly and concisely. That's what we call, as someone in the chat just pointed out, a word salad, a political word salad. So,
well, it's a clever ploy when someone is asking about pain points and you say, yes, those pain points exist, but there are these rainbows over here. And so that makes us feel good about ourselves, right? Also, just her eyeshadow is so pretty that I can't get over how her makeup is so good. I'm like, who's doing that for you? I know that it's just very distracting.
Maybe that's what they're trying to distract. They're trying, all of the women who might be watching, you know what? My pain, I can't feed my kids. I don't have baby formula.
But she's telling me that there are these rainbows, and she looks beautiful, and that's very distracting.
Her eyeshadow is very distracting. So all my pain just disappeared.
She's just very
amazing.
stylish. She's
Really is
very
amazing.
put
Philip,
together.
do you feel better now that her eyeshadow? Do you feel like you don't have to pay as much for gas because her eyeshadow?
You know, I mean, her hair is on point, her eyeshadow is on point. The only thing that did not completely 100% sell it for me was there was not a gas pump with numbers dropping as she was talking.
Right.
So it's like that is now the gold standard for me of whether or not I feel happy about what they're telling me. I don't care what they're talking about. They can be like, we're sending another $100 billion of weapons to Ukraine. If there's a gas pump with little dollar signs going down, I'm like, dude, everything's fine.
Right.
So
yeah, that's what I'll do
that's
from now
what
on.
I was missing.
Or if you just
Like,
put like
I'll do
thumbs
that
up
to you.
emojis around her.
So when you ask me like a tough question, I'll just take camera one, and I'll just wear like really nice eyeshadow, and I'll just like, honey, I'm sorry. No, I didn't clean up the kitchen. I forgot to put away the dishes. But I
Already,
should
your
point out-
eyelashes are very
I
distracting, honey.
should point out, though, that we're saving a lot of water. And the experts, a new analysis just came out this afternoon that shows by me not doing the dishes, we're saving a few dollars a month from water bills. So you should be really thrilled that we're in this great position. I just got this new analysis. How do my eyes look? Do I look good?
Okay, but can we just for 1 second talk about the merit of this 18-cent holiday?
Oh, yeah, it's absolute. Can we just
But,
call it bullshit?
Well, no, but just for
How about I do this?
just for an exercise,
It's
just for
bullshit.
a thought experiment, right? Okay, well, what does that 18 cents go towards? What do you think, right? I mean, we just talked about the military budget, but in theory, why did Congress pass this gas tax when it was instated? What is it supposed to go towards?
It goes to the oil companies.
No.
Oh, it doesn't?
In theory.
In
In theory, why do we do this?
Oh, for education.
No. Infrastructure, highways, bridges,
Oh,
where
right.
you actually
I was going to say
are driving.
highways.
Oh, so when you pay a toll, like you think, hey, like when you're on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Well, I was driving from University of Pittsburgh, where I used to go to Philadelphia, where I grew up, or Reading, Pennsylvania, and on the Turnpike it would say your toll dollars at work. We were able to revitalize all of I-76.
Yes, but
And I was like,
that's
wow, I
where
feel
you
good
have
about that.
highways, right? But in California, we have freeways, which are tax supported.
Mm-hmm.
And so not all highways are supported by tollways.
So the 18 cents is
So-
not doing anything.
We're talking, so, okay, in theory, right, if we take a break on that 18-cent tax, we're going to get crappier roads, right? Which already we
Right.
shouldn't
Good.
want because we have roads and bridges
America.
which are not in great shape.
Working
So
for you.
do we collectively agree that maintenance and infrastructure on these things should have a holiday, or shall we just take on debt for that too? Also,
Can we just talk about that? It's not going to do anything.
Right,
And
but
if you
let's just-
reduce, hold on, no. If you reduce the gas tax, what you're actually doing is you're not doing anything for the American people. You're going to be driving up the additional demand because now more people are arguably would be driving more, and we have a supply problem. We don't have enough of it because we've created artificial sanctions, and we've also artificially reduced the amount of drilling in the United States. So we have a supply problem. So what do you do if demand increases? Who do you help? You help the oil companies make more money. So that's what this will do. It's not going to help the American people
well,
at all.
because gas prices are not set by the chevron that you pass on the corner every day. Not at all. OPEC sets those market prices, right?
Well,
and
President Biden is being vilified for this. Philip, this is at this afternoon, so take my laptop here. So because he's talking about this, he's being accused of demonizing these mom and pop gas stations because of this.
And so, I mean, are we to think that there's this sort of cartoonish, like sometimes that mom and pop Chevron sells you gas at $2 because they feel nice, and sometimes they sell it to you at $7 because they want to make an extra buck? Clearly, it's not them setting the price, right? And so if you take this 18% down, then market, or 18 cents per gallon off, market forces can raise back that 18%. So again, you get crappier roads, right? And have you seen the state of American roads recently? In fact, the first time Clayton and I traveled to Germany and we traveled on the Autobahn, we were like, these are the most beautiful highways we've ever seen. They're clean.
Has anyone in our chat?
They're well maintained, right? And
has anyone in our chat ever been on the Autobahn in Germany? When we went there, we took my father there, who served just after World War II. He was stationed in Nuremberg, and we went, and it was unbelievable. Like there's not a piece of trash anywhere.
Now they pay high taxes to maintain those roads, right? But again, if we are all collectively agreeing that
your taxes go to fix roads,
18 cents should no longer, just because we think, okay, yeah, that will help us all, this 18 cents, right?
Yeah.
Then we have to agree that we take a pause on nice roads and infrastructure and bridges.
We were in Germany on the Autobahn, and we're like, holy smokes, these roads are like flawless, right? No trash anywhere, and every sign is well marked. And then we flew back and landed in Newark, New Jersey.
And we're like, oh, it's a shithole here.
Like, have you ever, we lived near Newark, and it was like, it's like where you go around the overpasses and there's like the blowing garbage.
Near Elizabeth.
Like, there's like,
if you know, you know.
Where garbage forms its own, tornadoes, like plastic bags. Like, that's literally Newark. And like, overpasses over overpasses that with signs that literally confuse the hell out of you, and you wind up in Manhattan by accident. Like, that's the difference between the two, right? That's United States roadways versus what they have when they actually put those tax dollars to work towards those roadways. But just some more points on this. So we heard from him on the gas tax holiday, and he wants Congress to push this forward. Now it's on, it's on Congress to do this,
which Nancy Pelosi has said, we'll consider
they're not going to do. They're not going to pass this. By the way, this is the funny part, right? This is what they're sort of hanging their entire hat on. But then President Biden goes back to once again blaming all of this on Putin. So this is Putin's price hike. Listen.
So for all those Republicans in Congress criticizing me today for high gas prices in America, are you now saying we were wrong to support Ukraine? Are you saying we were wrong to stand up to Putin? Are you saying that we would rather have lower gas prices in America and Putin's iron fist in Europe? I don't believe that.
You know what that is? That's gaslighting. Pun intended. That absolutely is the definition of gaslighting.
Well, it was interesting to watch the tail of that, right? He's been pushing this BS, Putin's price hike now for weeks. We on this show, from the moment it came out of his mouth, laughed at it because it's laughable, right? And we were showing you the data that all of this was happening well before Vladimir Putin invaded in the special military operation in Ukraine in February, right? All of this was happening well before that. And we had experts on this show talking about it. We played economists, all of it, right? And so Jerome Powell yesterday in front of the Senate was asked specifically about this. He was asked multiple times. What I want to play this full clip for you because he lays it out, this member of Congress lays this out perfectly. I want you to listen to how Jerome Powell answers this question. Play it.
Powell, I realize there are a number of factors that play a role in the historic inflation that we're experiencing. Supply chain disruptions, regulations that constrain supply. We've got rising inflation expectations and excessive fiscal spending. But the problem hasn't sprung out of nowhere. And in January of 2021, inflation was at 1.4%. By December of 2021, it had risen to 7%, a five-fold increase. Now, since the war in Ukraine began in late February, the rate of inflation has risen incrementally, another 1.6%, to a current level of 8.6%. So again, from 7% to 8.6%. Given how inflation has escalated over the past 18 months, would you say that the war in Ukraine is the primary driver of inflation in America?
No, inflation was high before, certainly before the war in Ukraine broke out.
I'm glad to hear you say that. The Biden administration seems to be intent on deflecting blame, and as recently as just this past Sunday, spread the misinformation that Putin's invasion of Ukraine is the, quote, biggest single driver of inflation. I'm glad you agree with me that that is not the truth.
So, yeah, it's not Ukraine. It's not Putin. It was happening well before that. And that was multiple questions asked on this point. So the White House is lying right to your face. And Jen Psaki, we played those clips back a few months ago while she was still White House press secretary, saying, you know what? Putin's price hike, when Putin went in, that's where we saw this explosion in inflation, and we were doing pretty great. And then, of course, Putin ruined it all for us. Putin has a lot of power. Here's Michael Waller. Take this tweet from Michael Waller if you have it handy. Michael Waller J. Michael Waller says, no world leader has done more to boost Putin's revenues from oil and gas than Joe Biden. Yeah, that's right. And also, so we saw yesterday, too, you see like the mainstream media and their spin on all of this. So MSNBC had a Washington Post correspondent on who comes on and does like money segments and talks about money and personal finance. And this is how out of touch Washington liberals are, Washington elites are, or New York liberals, New York elites are with the regular Americans who are suffering right now. Watch this interchange on MSNBC.
Mean more than a third of Americans are so pressed by what they're having to pay for gas, for food, everyday items, rent, that they'd rather see a recession. Is that where we are right now?
You know, I'm just going to say this, and if I get bang for it, I don't care. There's a great deal of Americans where it is uncomfortable that they're spending more, but they are not going to go under. You know, you got to stop complaining when there's so many people who literally the inflation rate means they may only have 2 meals instead of 3. There are Americans who did extremely well in the last 2 years in the market. You still have your job. And yeah, it's costing you more for gas, but guess what? You're still going to take that holiday, that 4th of July vacation. You can still eat out. So I'm going to need you to calm down and back off, because it feeds into this fear, and then this fear feeds into people making decisions that creates the very thing that they're fearful of. And if you're in that category, calm down. Stop looking at your portfolio. And you know what you can do with all that energy? Help other people. Help put some food on the table in somebody else's house because you have extra. Now, the other half of America.
People love being lectured by people on television, right? People who have a television job, people who are paid well and who are on MSNBC, and television commentators.
Who literally has a book behind her, probably, that either she's promoting or she wrote about money.
Right, about money. So just stop complaining, shut up, and just go help other people, because what your family is going through is not relevant. What you guys are going through right now is not relevant, according to MSNBC. Stop complaining. Just shut up.
That is extremely condescending.
Yeah.
And it's also one of my biggest pet peeves is the phrase, they can afford it, because how the heck do you know what like you make a judgment because someone has a good job, or because, I don't know, someone lives in a nice house and says they can afford it because of these judgments I've made about them, right? You don't know who's supporting another family member who has a sick, I don't know, whatever, who has other, like, I hate it when people say that, period. And I would never say it on television.
She goes on. I want to play the last part of her last few seconds of this, because what she says about COVID here just it made my hair stand on end. Listen.
Put that food on the table. Those are the folks that we need to concentrate on. And if they are responding to this survey saying that they're afraid, I get that. But overall, many Americans are not suffering as much as they think they are. And we can think things into existence because we are unrealistically fearful of something that hasn't happened yet. We don't know if we're in a recession yet. Inflation is high, but it's high for a reason. We just came out of a pandemic where if you got COVID, you weren't sure you were going to live.
Who booked that guest? You know, I want to play this clip all the time. I think about this from 30 Rock when one of the main characters became an MSNBC anchor, and then she was captured in North Korea and sent to be an anchor there, where she had to constantly go on the air and say, in other news, you've had enough food.
Right.
And
in North Korea.
In North Korea, because it was state-run media, right? And that was the news. And I want to play that clip all the time when I see the media talking down to us this way. We have to find it. If someone could find it, Janice.
In other words,
I feel so. You've had enough to eat.
I feel so bad earlier. I feel so bad that earlier I was kind of like being sarcastic about gas prices being high, when really I should just, shut up and be happy. So I apologize to everybody that I was sarcastic, and maybe it was a little high for me, but I guess no, it's not. I'm cool.
Yeah, you can take that dumpiness and
Well, I mean, and look,
go
she's
get
right.
an
She's,
attitude. You better check yourself before you wreck yourself.
She's absolutely right about it. Philip, there are no such thing as high gas prices. That you just created that. You just created that out of thin air, or as David Dean says in our chat, he says she's full of hot air. So you just created this idea of high gas prices. You're not actually dealing with high gas prices. You just created it. Stop complaining and just be lucky that you're alive because we just came through COVID. Like, I love this. That's her point.
And
like,
was it Chris Jenkins who was the anchor?
Yeah.
Who I have worked with before, and I think she's lovely. You know, we don't know what her response to that is, but any sort of someone who wants
well,
to
her
be...
question was up front was things are really bad, and you know inflation is very high, and we see these studies and we see these data points here, but it's not. It's hurting average. You know, it's hurting average people. And she says, "Well, just stop complaining."
I just wonder what a good response would have been when that is your guest and say, "Well, I'm glad you feel that way. I want to offer some empathy to a lot of people who can't get there."
No,
emotionally about having nothing.
I would have pressed her on it because I'm a dick. So I would have pressed her on it. And
on that
said,
we agree.
You know, like, yeah, I would have said, like, well, first of all, you know, if you come out of a pandemic, like, and you're lucky to be alive, so just shut up. We just came out of COVID. You're lucky to be alive. Now just shut up and take it. At the same time, we're spending $850 billion on a military defense budget that we just talked about, and another $37 billion this week, and $2.5 billion in addition to the gas money for military trucks and tanks, like so that the gas prices for those things are taken care of, but you're not. So go ahead, Philip. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. I was gonna tie it all together with a nice anecdote from about a month ago when I was driving back from David's, and there's like a massive pothole coming from the 205 to 14 because I live in Washington, and so I was heading south and I hit this pothole. Of course, it blew my tire. I had to get my tire. I had to buy a new tire. But as soon as I hit that pothole, the first thing I thought was, "Damn you, Putin!" But I'm happy that I get to pay extra for gas.
You felt patriotic about it.
Oh, I know the question.
Yes.
So you just reminded me. So Chris Jenkins asked her, saying, you know what, more Americans are saying right now that they would be happy to have an inflation or happy to have a recession if it meant that the lower prices. And I have to think, actually, that makes a lot of sense because you know who really, if you think about the recession, who's it going to hurt? It's going to hurt Wall Street.
Yeah. It's
going to hurt big business. So for a recession for most people, as long as they have their jobs, right? As long as prices come down, that's what stagflation is, right? We're seeing these businesses doing really well and your wages aren't going up. So if there's a recession, that means that these businesses aren't doing as well and prices come down. And guess what? You're actually better off. So maybe a recession's not so bad after all.
Because they don't care if the stock market is doing well, if they actually can make ends meet. I understand that.
Yeah, who cares if Boeing's doing well, right? As long as you're doing well. And I mean, at the end of the day, they've been artificially pumped up by Wall Street or from the Federal Reserve for the past 12 years anyway, 15 years. So maybe there's something to that. You know, you had sent me this clip earlier, and this is, I was watching it this afternoon. It's funny you sent it to me. This idea of the gas tax holiday, right? This is something that President Obama vilified because it was something that then Senator Hillary Clinton was running on, right? So this is 2008. Let's go back to President Obama, Barack Obama, running for the White House in 2008. And what were his thoughts on the gas tax? Watch.
Because right now the debates we have are not honest. Look, let's talk about this gas tax holiday that Senator Clinton has been talking about. Everybody here knows how much of a burden high gas prices are placing on you. You feel it every time you fill up the tank. You feel it every time you drive to work. So we know how tough it is for families. They need relief. But when you hear Senator Clinton and John McCain both offering the same solution, a gas tax holiday that will offer you pennies for 90 days, but probably won't deliver those pennies Because every time we have tried this, what ends up happening is the oil companies end up just jacking up their prices by the same amount as the tax is lowered. Then you know that it's a gimmick.
Wow.
You know you are being
So this video has surfaced recently in response to Joe Biden, who put on Twitter, yes, I know it won't really, solve this crisis, but he says it will give us, he says, what my father calls some breathing room. So will half a tank of gas in a full year really give you breathing room, right? If we're breathing by pennies right now, if you're hanging on by pennies,
right,
then this gives you half a tank of gas throughout, depending on how much gas prices continue to rise, right? So in response to this sort of faux promise of relief, this video has surfaced saying, okay, but you didn't think that 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 14 years ago.
Just stop complaining.
Thank you so much for subscribing to our channel. We've been banned, we've been blocked, we've been censored. That's why we started our own website, to stay connected with you for free.
That's right. So head on over to redacted.inc and make sure you're connected with us. You can sign up again at redacted.inc, not .com.